Speed. It was directed by Jean de Bont, came out in 1994, stars Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, Dennis Hopper, and fair warning, I'm gonna fangirl out for this entire video. I love this movie so much. You don't even know. Speed is about a young police officer who must prevent a bomb from exploding aboard a city bus by keeping its speed above 50 miles per hour. Also known as the greatest action plot of all time. In all seriousness, Graham Yost's script is absolutely fantastic. This is such a great idea for an action movie because nobody has time to breathe, especially our hero who's thrown through a series of increasingly difficult obstacles, and we get to watch and have a great time. Before I talk about anything, I have to talk about Mark Mancina's score. His theme for Speed, my God, I played that too many times on the highway. It is not a safe thing to do. It is the epitome of 90s action music. I adore this soundtrack. I have listened to it more times than I can even count. And just think, in 1994, you could see Jeff Daniels in Speed, or you could see Jeff Daniels in Dumb and Dumber. That is what we call range. This was the directorial debut of Jean de Bont, an immensely accomplished cinematographer. He shot movies like Cujo, Die Hard, The Hunt for Red October, Basic Instinct, and Lethal Weapon 3. He was no stranger to action, but behind the camera, he accomplished some of the most impressive action scenes that had ever been put to film at that time. And are you really a 90s cop unless your car literally flies onto the scene? Whenever I rewatch this movie, I always have such a good time, and I always remember how often I watched it as a kid on TV. But this time, I realized something that I had never thought of before. I believe this was the first time I ever saw Keanu Reeves in anything. Because I would have seen this probably in 1996, and I know I hadn't seen Parenthood, Bill and Ted, or Point Break at that time. What this movie did for Keanu Reeves is kind of what Liar Liar did for Jim Carrey, at least when it comes to critics, because a lot of critics did not take him seriously with Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and Batman Forever. Around the Liar Liar era, they started to notice his talent, and then later with Truman Show, they finally accepted him. With Speed, a lot of the critics who didn't like Keanu in Bram Stoker's Dracula, or thought he was just like a surfer dude bro actor and that's all he was ever going to be able to do, were silenced by this movie. Because Keanu Reeves is truly excellent in this film, and he really puts himself into the stunt work in a way that I've honestly never seen from him in any other film, even the Matrix and John Wick movies. He does plenty of stunts in the John Wick films, but he is also in a position in which he has power over all of the people who are fighting him, and he does a lot of those moves himself, and he's terrific at them. And of course, in the Matrix, learning all the fights and performing them to such perfection. But in Speed, he is constantly put in actual danger. Of course, they were completely safe, but he's often doing his own driving. He's running out into traffic, and of course, Jean de Bont got him in a beautiful wide with all these cars coming towards him, or even just laying on this thing, which seems simple enough, but you have no idea how many A-listers would never even think about doing something like that. The opening of Speed features Dennis Hopper rigging bombs to an elevator, and Keanu Reeves and Jeff Daniels as partners for the LAPD have to try to rescue all the people in this elevator while also defusing the bomb. This opening is 23 minutes long, and it would be completely relevant for any finale to another action movie. It's that good. It's that exciting. You are immediately in. And do you think David Koepp and Robert Towne, the writers of the first Mission Impossible, saw this and thought, hey, what about that but for a whole scene? But this next shot is one of the film's best, and it's when the movie really picks up. If you thought the first act was great, that's nothing compared to what's coming next. This bus blows up. It looks beautiful. It's real. It's not CGI. It's really a bus blowing up. And he hears a phone ringing. And you realize that good old Dennis Hopper from that intro is not dead. He's now going to force Keanu to track down a bus. He says that if it goes above 50 miles an hour, there's a bomb on it that's going to arm, and as soon as it drops below 50, it's going to blow. There's a line in this movie later where Dennis Hopper tells Keanu that we both knew that Jeff Daniels' character was the brains of their operation. But I don't think that's true at all. Because one of my favorite moments of the movie that is never discussed happens right here. When they're on the phone, Keanu is like, "Where's the bus?" And Hopper goes, "Do you really think I'm going to tell you that?" And Keanu pauses for a second and goes, "Yes." And Hopper is like, "Ha, you're right. It's part of the game. Here's where you can find the bus. You're off to the races, cowboy. After just one interaction with this guy in the first act of the movie, he's smart enough to know that this is all a game to him, that he will lead him to the bus, because if he doesn't find the bus, it's not going to be fun. It's just going to blow up, and that's the end of the story. He's smart enough to know that that's not good enough for our villain. While rewatching Speed, I realized something about myself that I could never fully put into words, and I think I understand myself so much better now because I had this thought. I was wondering why I love action movies from the 90s so much, and why that particular decade really feels like it has so many impactful movies. Of course, Die Hard came out at the very end of the 80s, which highly influenced the 90s. And of course, I was young, so I was experiencing movies like this for the first time. But I really do think it's as simple as this. The 80s had such cheese and over-the-top factor for all of their action movies. And the 2000s got super dark and gritty and realistic and grounded. The 90s seems like the perfect bridge between the two, where you still had a little bit of that cheese, but you weren't quite so fucking serious yet that everybody gets depressed when they leave. The 90s was that great middle ground where it had just enough realism and just enough cheese. And what an incredible find in Sandra Bullock. She's amazing here. So charismatic and likable instantly. For instance, there's a scene where she's sitting down and Alan Ruck behind her is a tourist who's annoying the shit out of her, and she just wants to find an excuse to move her seat without looking like an asshole. So she takes her own gum out of her mouth and acts like she found it on her seat and is like, oh, look, there's gum on my seat. I better move. The best part about this, improv. I had a very unique experience watching Speed when I was young because both my parents were bus drivers and I would also later work on a bus myself. It was a real pain to watch this movie with them because they would point out every factual inaccuracy that you could never do on a bus. Oh, that bus would never make that turn at 50. That would never happen with that bus. Oh, the gears don't work that way. Just a nightmare. I imagine it'd be like watching, any movie about a lawyer or a court case with another lawyer, and they're like, oh my God, this would never happen. The courts don't work that way. Wouldn't he just know about Appendix CF947? How does he not remember about the Appendix CF947? What an idiot. That's what it was like. Another fun tidbit about Speed, when Keanu punches the door here and the glass breaks, that was not planned, and they liked it so much they left it in. Now, keep in mind, it's not just oh, that was a cool thing that happened. That's like a continuity thing that they have to have for the rest of the movie. The glass always has to look like that for the rest of the movie. So that's a real commitment to go, I like how that fucked up, I'm keeping it. It's also great that we can see 360 around this bus quite often. Usually in movies when there's driving coverage, you're kind of limited to a few different angles, whether it's a profile shot or straight on the actor, because you're often pulling the car. It's usually like another rig that's pulling the car and the actor is just pretending to steer. But for a movie like Speed that takes place mostly on a bus, I can see why Jean de Bont would want a lot more shots than that. There's plenty of shots here where it really does look like they're actually driving the bus, even though from what I understand, somebody might have been on top of the bus driving it. I don't know how they rigged that, but that is so impressive because there is not a single part of Speed that doesn't feel real. Every single car crash, every turn, the jump over the bridge, all of it is practical. There is no CGI that's making this happen. There's no impossible shit that's making it happen. If they pulled it off, they pulled it off. And you believe every single moment. Once Sandra Bullock gets behind the wheel, the movie really starts to pick up, even though it already really started to pick up. This is just a movie in which everything gets better and better and better. But now we have these two working together, and their chemistry is off the charts. Both of them later admitted in an interview, separate from one another, that they had a crush on each other while filming, which I just think is adorable.
I think about how sweet Keanu Reeves was and how handsome he was. It was hard. It was really, it was hard for me to really be serious. He would look at me and I'd be like,
She obviously didn't know I had a crush on her either.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
What's cool about this from an action movie standpoint is that with Bullock and Reeves, you get both characters that are commonly seen as action heroes. You have an every woman, in the case of Sandra Bullock, someone who's just thrown into this, who has no idea what's going on, and she's trying to make the best of it. And you got Keanu Reeves, a trained cop, who at least has that, even though he doesn't necessarily want to be there and wasn't planning on doing this today. You get the best of both worlds here. And she is crashing into everything in sight. including a baby carriage, which, thank God, as Keanu Reeves says,
cans!
I can see the baby!
Cans!
Oh my God! Oh my God!
There was no baby, it was full of cans.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Oh my God!
look, I have like a little in-joke. Whenever I have a lot of recycle to take out, I will often be like, it's just cans! It's cans! The sequence where Keanu Reeves has to go underneath the bus is so fucking sick, and he's got to cut just the sheath of the wire while the bus is on him and they're going over 50 miles an hour and he's bouncing around and he can't cut the wire, just the sheath part. I've never seen that in a movie before up until that point. And Graham Yost really did a phenomenal job to make sure that it isn't just about the bomb. It's not just that idea. Something is always going wrong. When he first arrives on the bus, there's a criminal there who thinks he's there for him and pulls a gun out, which shoots the bus driver. And now you gotta get Sandra Bullock in there, who knows nothing about driving a bus. But it's not just about a series of obstacles. They actually found a way to insert some real depth here, because all the while, Jeff Daniels and his team are trying to figure out where Dennis Hopper is. And once they do find an address, they go to that house and they all die when it blows up. So Keanu's on this bus, still dealing with this problem, and he's informed by the killer himself that his best friend is dead. So they found a way to not just have it be about the moment, but also really give some depth to it. And again, despite whatever Hopper says about Reeves in this movie, he is very smart. He realizes the CC camera is filming them, and more than likely the bomber can see them this whole time. So they orchestrate this genius plan to stand in one place for a while and then loop that footage through UHF and send it back to the bomber so they can get the passengers off the bus. As far as the release of tension in a thriller or an action movie or even a horror movie, I have seen few as effective as the final minute that everyone is on this bus in Speed. Because the passengers getting off, every single step they take, you think it's going to blow for some reason. And as soon as our two heroes get on this compartment and fly out from underneath that bus right into those orange cones, I remember being so goddamn excited and happy when that happened the first time I saw this movie. And all these years later, I still get goosebumps at that part. This leads to what might be my favorite movie explosion of all time. This bus and this plane. It is beautiful. Look at that real fucking explosion. Now, some people talk about this third act of the movie like it's not as good or something. I love that it's not over yet. I fucking think it's riveting. It is still such a blast. You get a first act with an elevator bomb, you get a second act filled with a bus bomb, and you get a third act with Sandra Bullock strapped to a bomb and a subway. This is enough action for like half a dozen movies. The brilliance of Speed is unparalleled. It is genuinely one of the best action scripts ever written. Everyone in the industry is jealous of this movie. Everyone is still looking for a Speed. Someone will always tell you at any studio, do you got anything like Speed? Do you have anything along those lines? A thriller that moves really fast, that never stops, with a high concept plot? And nobody can find something better. Even the film's sequel couldn't figure it out. To this day, Speed remains one of my favorite action movies, one of my favorite movies, period. I love everything about it. If you guys have never seen Speed, man, go have some fun. It is such a great time. If you have seen Speed, what's your first memory of it? Did you get to see it in theaters? I'm jealous, first of all. By the way, this year is its 30th anniversary. Can we get this back in theaters, please? Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching Feature Presentation. Look forward to more videos very soon. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.